The call came in just before midnight, but I remember the exact second I heard her voice. It was the kind of whisper you almost don't hear the first time. "Please, help me." That was all she said at first. No sobbing, no shouting. Just those 3 words, quiet as breath. I didn't know then that she was already hiding, already listening to footsteps on her stairs, already counting the seconds. But I knew the voice. I've heard it every night since. Let me know where you're listening from tonight, and if you've ever had a moment where something just felt wrong. And if these stories keep you company, consider subscribing so you won't miss the next one. My name's Dana Ellis. I was 37 at the time this happened. I'm 56 now. I worked nights at a small lodge just outside Estes Park, Colorado. One of those wood-heavy mountain places with stone fireplaces and a quiet check-in desk. We'd get mostly skiers and older couples in winter. Never too busy. Most nights I shared the shift with Len Turner. He handled maintenance snow removal, sometimes just kept me company when it was slow. That night, though, we had a guest check in just before the storm hit. Paid in cash, no ID, didn't ask for Wi-Fi. He was polite, barely said more than a sentence. We called him the Quiet Man. And for a long time I thought that was the story I'd be telling. But later that night, after Len went to shovel the back walk, I got a call from my old friend Cheryl. She still worked dispatch back in Millbrook County. We hadn't talked in a while. She was crying. She was 7 years into her job at Millbrook County Dispatch. That's in southern Indiana. Small town, quiet neighborhoods, the kind of place where folks still wave at each other at red lights. She'd handled all the usual calls by then: heart attacks, accidents, domestic fights, power outages. She said she could count on one hand the ones that really stayed with her. Until Emma Winters called. It was October. Cold snap had come early. The leaves hadn't even finished turning yet. Cheryl was pulling a double shift 5th cup of coffee gone cold when the line lit up at 11:47 p.m. She gave her standard greeting. There was silence, not quite dead air, just soft breathing. Then that whisper, "Please, help me. He's here. Tyler's here." She said the way the girl spoke made her stop everything. Not just afraid flat, like she already knew how this ended. Cheryl pulled up the caller info, 1847 Maple Grove Lane. Nice part of town. Teenage girl, 17. A restraining order had been filed just 3 months ago. Tyler Brennan, age 19. Multiple complaints, stalking, harassment. Cheryl said the file kept loading. Scroll after scroll of notes. She activated the recording line, switched to her headset. Asked Emma where she was in the house. "In my closet. Upstairs. My parents are out of town." He broke the kitchen window. Then Cheryl heard it too, a dull thudding sound in the background. 3 beats. Pause. 3 more. Not fists. Not pounding, like someone testing a lock with his foot. She typed fast. Flagged it, priority 1, sent 2 units, ETA 8 minutes. But 8 minutes is a lifetime when you're hiding. Emma's voice started shaking. "He's calling my name." And then over the phone, Cheryl heard it too. A man's voice, calm, stretched out like a joke. "Emma Elizabeth, come on out, baby. You and me need to talk." Cheryl pulled the house layout from records. 3 bedrooms, upstairs, bathroom in the middle. Emma had said she was at the end of the hall. She told her to look for anything she could push against the closet door. A dresser, a chair. Emma whispered, There's a dresser, but it's too heavy. I can't. Then a slam. Cheryl heard the bedroom door rattle. She kept her voice calm. Emma, I need you to be very quiet now. Help is close, Emma said. He's been watching the house all night. He waited till my parents left. Then the voice again. Right outside the door. I saw your car, sweetheart. Why'd you stop answering my texts? Cheryl marked the units again. Urgent. Updated the notes. Then came a new message from the field. Route 47 blocked. Accident. Units rerouted. ETA now 12 minutes. 12. Emma was crying now, breathing fast. Cheryl told her to look up. Is there an attic hatch? Yes, but I can't reach it. I'm trying. Then crash. Cheryl flinched. It was loud even through the headset. The bedroom door had been breached. She heard boots on carpet. Emma dropped the phone. Cheryl stayed on the line. She said it was the longest minute of her life. The sounds were awful hangers scraping, wood splintering, a soft voice calling her name. Then, found you. Cheryl said she couldn't speak for a few seconds after that. She just listened. Emma begged him not to hurt her, said she'd talk. He said, too late. You had your chance. There was a struggle. Thuds. Something breaking. Then nothing. Then 2 minutes of silence. Cheryl didn't hang up, just whispered Emma's name over and over into a dead line. When the officers arrived, they were shouting, room by room. Then one of them picked up the phone. It was Officer Daniels. He said, "Dispatch, we need EMS, and notify the coroner." Cheryl said her supervisor had to take the headset off her head. She wouldn't let go. Tyler fled the scene, jumped the backyard fence, took off into the woods. He was caught 3 days later, hiding in his uncle's shed 2 counties over. He confessed. Took a plea deal, life without parole. At sentencing, Emma's mother approached Cheryl in the courthouse bathroom. She said, "You stayed with her. She wasn't alone. That matters." Cheryl never took another call after that. She left dispatch 6 months later and moved west. I hadn't heard from her in over a year. But that night, with snow hitting our windows and a silent man in room 4, she called me just to say she couldn't sleep. Said she still hears Emma's voice sometimes. Whispers it back like a prayer. Not because she thinks it'll bring peace, but because she can't stop counting those 12 minutes. I don't usually talk about this. It's one of those memories that makes people look at you differently, like they're trying to decide whether you're lying or just damaged. But I wasn't drunk, I wasn't tired, and I wasn't the only one who heard what came through the radio that night. The static had a sound to it I'd never heard before, sharper, like it had edges. And after what happened to Jason, we all started listening to the silence a little differently. I was working overnight dispatch for the Fremont County Sheriff's Department back then. It was mid-November temperatures, in the low teens, the kind of cold that turns your breath metallic. We were on a skeleton crew, just 3 deputies covering almost 800 square miles of ranchland wilderness and 2 unincorporated towns. After 11:00 p.m., calls dropped to almost nothing, usually just someone reporting a loose horse or a drunk neighbor shouting at fence posts. That night was no different, until it was. Deputy Jason Holloway had been assigned to the eastern sector. That included Forest Service Road 92, which ran the border of Elk Ridge Wildlife Reserve. He was a solid guy, 2 years on the job, quiet but dependable, always on time with his check-ins. At 11:40 p.m., He radioed that he was heading up Road 92 to check on a report of campers who hadn't checked out properly. It was a routine pass, the kind you don't think twice about logging. Except when 12:10 came and went, there was no check-in, no status update, just silence. At first, I wasn't worried. Radios crack out there sometimes. Hills weather old trees. But by 12:15, I started calling for him. Unit 23, this is dispatch, please confirm status. Nothing. I tried 3 more times. Same result. Then I switched frequencies and called Sergeant Coleman, who was patrolling west. Policy said to wait until 12:30 before initiating a search, but my gut said otherwise. That silence wasn't dead. It was waiting. At 12:28, the radio popped back to life. Jason's voice came through, but it was wrong. He was breathing hard, almost panting. Dispatch Unit 23. I've got. There's someone on foot, middle of the road. I leaned forward, headset tight. Can you describe the individual? Long pause. Negative. Can't make out details. They're just standing there, not moving. About 50 yards out, wearing something dark. His voice cracked. There was something behind it I hadn't heard from him before. Not fear, not exactly. More like he didn't trust his own eyes. Then he said, "They're moving toward me. But it's not right. They're gliding, not walking." I don't know why, but those words made my stomach knot. Gliding, not walking. I told him not to approach, to stay in the vehicle. Backup was en route, but I heard the door chime over the radio. He was already getting out. His voice grew fainter as he called out Sheriff's Department. "Are you all right?" Then footsteps on gravel, the scuff of boots, then Jason again, but this time barely a whisper. "That's not, you're not." What followed was a sound I've never heard before or since. It was like a wind chime made of teeth and bone, soft, unnatural wrong. Then Jason screamed, not out of pain, not out of fear. It was confusion, pure, helpless confusion. And then silence, not even static, just dead air. I called his name over and over. Then I heard Coleman's voice. "I'm 15 minutes out. Tell Morrison to get everyone moving." Those 15 minutes were the longest I've ever lived. By the time Coleman reached the last known coordinates, I was shaking. He keyed his mic. "Dispatch, I found the cruiser. Engines running. Driver's door open. No sign of Holloway." He moved around the vehicle, narrating as he went. "Sidearms on the ground, fully loaded, didn't fire. Radio mics hanging outside the door." Then a pause. "There are marks in the gravel, like something was dragged. But they stop. Just stop. No trail. More time passed. The sheriff arrived with 3 more units. They swept the woods, set up a perimeter. The flashlight beams barely cut through the tree line. They brought in dogs at dawn. The dogs wouldn't cross the edge of the road. They backed away, whimpering. The handler, a seasoned guy named Hutchinson, said he'd never seen anything like it. Then Deputy Thorne found something. Jason's other boot, a quarter-mile into the woods, sitting neatly at the base of a pine tree. Hours later, his duty belt was discovered hanging 15 feet off the ground. No branches to climb, no sign of struggle. Everything was clean, deliberate, as if someone had arranged it all to be found. When we reviewed the body cam footage, it only made things worse. It started normal headlights on Forest Service Road 92, dashboard glow, quiet engine. Then the figure appeared, just like he described, tall, thin, not moving. As Jason got closer, the figure glided forward. Feet never touched the road, just hovered. He stepped out, approached slowly. They faced each other for 3 seconds. Then the figure tilted its head. That's when the footage glitched, not scrambled, not cut. It broke. Our tech guy couldn't explain it. The pixels rearranged into shapes that made your head hurt. Lines where there shouldn't be lines. Angles that twisted like they weren't made for a screen. Jason said one thing before it went black. The face is wrong. They searched for 2 weeks. State troopers, volunteers, drones, helicopters. No blood, no body. Just more of Jason's belongings all placed intentionally. His wedding ring on a rock stack. His wallet tucked into a hollow log, clean, untouched. We thought it was over. Until Coleman went back one night for a sweep, called in on a scratchy channel. There's someone standing where the cruiser was. Same spot. Same stance. I pulled up the evidence log. Jason's uniform was accounted for every piece in storage. Coleman said, no, he's wearing it. But, Carla, he has no face. Then Coleman screamed, the kind of scream that shuts everything else off. When backup arrived 8 minutes later, his cruiser was locked. Empty. His body cam, same corruption, same glitch, same black screen. After that, the FBI stepped in. They closed the road, declared it unstable terrain. Internally, they called it a Category 4. No one explained what that meant, but the searches stopped. A month later, I was alone in dispatch when a sound came through my backup channel. Crying. Not over the main line through static. It was Jason's voice. Help! I'm lost. They won't let me leave. It lasted 43 seconds. Then the bone chime noise came again, then silence. 3 months later, a hiker swore he saw 2 deputies standing still in the woods, facing each other like statues. No one else found anything, but there were 2 sets of boot prints. They started and stopped in the middle of nowhere. I quit 6 months later, not because of Jason, because of the radio. Every time the static clicked on, I held my breath. Sometimes I still do. Because if you listen closely enough, you can hear them calling for backup. Still out there, still waiting. I've worked dispatch for long enough to know when something's going to be trouble. There's a sound people make when they call 911, a hesitation in the silence. You can tell what kind of night it's going to be just by the way they breathe. But that call from 8147 Willow Street didn't come with a voice. Just silence. Twice. And the building it came from condemned for over a year. That was when I stopped sipping my coffee. It was September, one of those late summer nights where the air feels heavier than it should. The kind of night where your shirt clings to your back before midnight, and nothing ever quite cools down. The first call came in at 11:47 p.m. No sound, no voice, just a few seconds of static, then disconnect. The system pinged the source as a duplex off Willow Street boarded up since the kitchen fire last year. City said it would be demolished, but delays kept pushing it back. I logged it as a probable ghost line, and went back to watching the screen. 20 minutes later, the second call came through. Same number, same pattern. That was enough to push protocol. I radioed Bradley and Martinez, 2 solid officers already out near the industrial zone. Bradley sounded casual. Thought maybe some kids had broken in, maybe a squatter. Routine. That's what he said. But even as he said it, I felt something tighten in the pit of my stomach. It's not always what you hear. Sometimes It's what you don't. While they were en route, I pulled up the property record. The duplex used to belong to a small dental practice, went under in 2020, seized for taxes, left to rot. Photos showed scorched siding and cracked windows. Bradley's body cam came online at 12:14 a.m. The place looked worse than expected. Paint peeled like skin in the humidity. Boards on the windows hung loose. The front door wasn't just unlocked, it was slightly open. Bradley pushed it open with his boot. Inside, the flashlight caught exposed wiring, crumbled drywall, and footprints tracked in the dust. Multiple sets, fresh. No lights, but a radio behind the front desk was playing oldies too loud, considering the place should have had no power. That's when the third call came through. This time, I heard breathing. Ragged, close, then silence. Martinez circled around the back, found a basement window that had been pried open. Metal frame bent outward, scratches along the sill. Inside, Bradley found something odd. A red camping cooler in the far corner of the stripped kitchen. Inside were frozen gel packs, glass vials filled with clear liquid and plastic-wrapped syringes. All still cold. It wasn't just squatting. Somebody was using this place for something. That's when they heard the humming. Low, rhythmic, not music, not quite human either. Martinez followed it toward the basement. The door had been painted over again and again, the kind of old layers that look soft under pressure. Fresh claw marks near the handle. Bradley took point, opened it slowly. Each wooden step groaned under his boots. The humming got louder as they descended. The body cam feed showed a basement that had been transformed. Orange extension cords strung along the ceiling. Work lights buzzing with exposed bulbs. Folding tables lined the walls covered in handwritten notes, notebooks, and photographs. Photos of kids, teenagers, some no older than 14. A red twine web linked them like case files. But at the center of the room, that's what stopped them cold. 7 adults sat cross-legged in a circle, all perfectly still, all humming that low, steady drone. In the center of their circle was a girl, maybe 16, lying motionless on a mat, eyes open, pupils blown wide. An IV was taped to her arm. Strange symbols were drawn on her skin in thick black marker, not occult symbols, geometric. They seemed to shimmer under the light. Bradley announced their presence. The humming stopped instantly. 7 heads turned in perfect sync, no panic, no surprise. Just acknowledgement, like they'd been waiting. The oldest man stood, gray hair, wire rim glasses. Introduced himself as Dr. Harold Vance. His voice was smooth, practiced. Said they were conducting a therapeutic session memory work for at-risk youth. Said the girl was named Stephanie. Said she came willingly. He gestured to a briefcase near the wall. Said it held his credentials. His tone never wavered, calm, even pleasant. But Martinez was already scanning the room, found 3 more rolled-up mats in the corner, 3 more IV stands, unused but ready. That's when the 4th call came in. This time, a voice. A young male whispering, "Please. They won't let us leave." I patched it directly to Bradley's ear. His posture changed. Vance noticed, didn't flinch, just smiled again. Said the children were upstairs completing their inventories. Invited the officers to meet them. That was when the group started to rise. One by one, too slowly, too smoothly. Their eyes had the same blown pupils. They moved like they were submerged in water. One woman, maybe 30, started humming again. A different tone this time, almost like she was tuning the room. Martinez went to radio for backup, but his mic gave nothing but garbled static. Bradley ordered everyone to sit down. They didn't. Vance pulled a phone from his pocket, an old flip phone, held it out like an offering, said, "The children call when they're ready for the next phase." Bradley drew his weapon. Vance never blinked. Said they'd been helping runaway teens for over a year. Said the drugs kept them calm. Said the symbols mapped their transition process. Behind him, one of the men started drawing, fast, sharp strokes. When I zoomed the feed, I realized he was sketching the floor plan of our station, room by room. Backup arrived just as things broke. The group scattered not randomly, with purpose. Two shoved documents into their mouths and chewed. Another grabbed the IV bags and slashed them open. The blonde woman lunged for the girl on the mat, trying to drag her toward a hidden door behind a file cabinet. Bradley tackled her. Martinez caught another trying to unplug the generator. Vance didn't resist, didn't move, just watched. Said, "You're interrupting crucial work. They came to us broken. We're making them whole." Stephanie was semi-conscious, mumbling about doorways, numbers that didn't line up right. Upstairs they found 12 more kids, each in their own room, each with symbols drawn on their skin. Some were lucid, some couldn't remember their names. All had been writing in journals, pages and pages, where their life stories were told and retold and changed. They found over 100 notebooks, each kid made to rewrite their history again and again, just slightly different each time, until they forgot what was real. The whole thing unraveled fast. Vance had been a licensed psychiatrist once, lost his license in 2018 for memory suppression experiments. The others were ex-patients, recruited from online groups. They targeted teens who wouldn't be missed. Runaways, kids from shelters, told them they'd help erase the pain. The duplex was demolished 2 months later, but I still remember the humming, the way those people turned in unison, the way the girl on the mat blinked like she didn't know where she was or who she'd been, and the way that fourth call sounded just before the line cut out, as if the kid wasn't calling for help, but warning us. I've lived in Indiana my whole life, but the first and only time I doubted what my eyes were seeing was in a cemetery just north of town. I wasn't new to patrol, been with Restwood PD for over 20 years by then, but that summer they paired me with Keegan Ray, fresh out of academy, still had that shine behind the ears. I didn't mind him. Quiet observant, didn't fill the silence just to hear himself talk. Our beat was usually nothing unlocked sheds, foxes mistaken for prowlers, the occasional drunken dispute that fizzled out before backup arrived. That night started like any other. Hot but not humid. The kind of Midwest summer air that buzzes with electricity even when the sky's clear. We'd just finished checking the loading dock behind the lumberyard when the call came in. Dispatch said someone had reported a young girl walking alone through Restwood Cemetery. Not unusual during daylight. People wander in from the trails. But it was 2:03 a.m., and whoever called didn't leave a name. Keegan looked at me like he wanted to ask if it was a prank. I just nodded. "You'll learn," I told him. "Restwood gets strange after midnight." The cemetery sits just off County Line Road, surrounded by pine and cedar. Founded in 1861, the original plots are arranged in spirals. Some local historian thought it was symbolic of life cycles or something like that. But the layout confuses people. Even locals get turned around. No lights inside. Just your headlights and the moon, if you're lucky. We rolled in slow. Keegan kept sweeping the tree line. I scanned the gravel paths. That's when we saw her. Small frame, barefoot. Long dark hair, pale nightgown fluttering just slightly, even though the air was dead still. She wasn't running, just walking steadily between headstones. Not fast, not scared, like she knew exactly where she was going. Keegan rolled down his window. "Hey, are you okay?" he called out. The girl stopped, didn't turn, didn't run, just froze. I stepped out of the cruiser, kept my voice soft. "You lost, sweetheart. It's late. We can help." That's when she finally turned, eyes too wide, not scared, more like startled in a dream. She opened her mouth like she wanted to speak, then turned and started walking again. Not fast, just back into the spirals. We followed on foot, gravel crunching under our boots. Somewhere behind us an owl called twice. Keegan kept glancing back toward the cruiser. I didn't blame him. The cemetery felt off that night. Not spooky, not haunted, just off. Like the temperature had dropped 5 degrees the moment we stepped past the third row of headstones. We rounded one curve, lost sight of her for maybe 10 seconds. That's all it took. She was gone. We stopped. I called her name, though we didn't have one. Nothing. Just wind in the pines and the occasional squeak of rusted gate hinges. Keegan pointed toward a plot where the grass was still worn down. "I think she went that way," he said. But it wasn't a path, just a gap between 2 mausoleums. And when we looked again, the ground between them was undisturbed. No footprints, no bent grass, nothing. We split up slightly. I looped toward the chapel ruins near the north edge. Keegan circled toward the maintenance shed. We stayed in radio contact. After 10 minutes, nothing. No sign. We regrouped at the cruiser, called it in. That's when Lieutenant Raleigh came over the channel. His voice was calm, but I could hear the hesitation. He asked for a description. We gave it. He paused, then said something I still think about. He told us that 15 years ago, another patrol officer, Albrecht Long, retired, had reported a nearly identical encounter. Same cemetery, same age girl, same time of night. She vanished mid-pursuit. The case file was thin, chalked up to heat fatigue, dismissed. But Albrecht had written a note on the back of his report. It wasn't official, but Raleigh kept it. All it said was, "She moved like she remembered this place." We stayed another hour. No new calls, nothing on the motion cams near the fence. We even asked the groundskeeper next day. Said he hadn't seen any kids near the property in weeks. Said the last person buried in that spiral section was a girl named Abigail Harper. Died in 1966. I don't know what we saw. I've never seen her again. But Keegan left the department a few months later. Said he wanted to move closer to his family. Said night shifts messed with his head. I stayed, still on patrol, still driving past Restwood twice a week. But I don't go in anymore. Not after 2 a.m. And never if I hear footsteps that don't echo mine. The last real job I ever had was working night shift at a self-storage facility off exit 191 just east of Cheyenne. It was the kind of place that stayed quiet after sundown. One long gravel road, 3 rows of metal doors, and a single cinder block office with a humming soda machine out front. I didn't mind it. After years of retail and temp work, sitting behind a desk with black coffee and a police scanner was almost a blessing. The owner, Mike, hired me on after Nina, the day clerk, said I seemed too polite to steal. The pay was thin, but I could read between rounds and no one bothered me. We had maybe 4 visitors on an average night. Folks checking on boats, shifting furniture, grabbing old tax records from long-forgotten boxes. Sometimes truckers would park out back and nap for an hour or 2 before hitting the road again. It was always the same rhythm. Silence, then headlights, then silence again, until the night that man came in. He pulled up just before 1 a.m., faded red pickup, loud engine, 1 headlight out. He didn't come to the window, didn't buzz in, just waited. I watched him from the office, then finally went out with the clipboard. He looked about 70, white beard, weathered face, jacket too heavy for summer, said he had a unit row C-NOS 38, said he was clearing it out tonight. I asked for ID. He handed me a laminated card with just a name, Dennis. No address, no date, just Dennis. The laminate was peeling at the corners. Something about that threw me. But I didn't argue. He didn't seem dangerous, just tired. I lifted the gate and watched his taillights disappear around the corner. Normally, I'd go back inside. That night, I didn't. I walked halfway down row C, stayed in the shadows behind Unit 20, just to be sure. I heard the storage door roll open, metal on metal. But no light, no flashlight, no truck headlights either. Just darkness and the faint sound of cardboard scraping concrete. Then, something heavier. A wet sound, like a tarp being dragged across damp ground. I moved a few steps closer, still couldn't see clearly. The man's shape was there, low to the ground. He wasn't lifting things. He was pulling something out. After a while, he stood and closed the door. Didn't lock it, didn't say a word. Just walked slowly back to the truck and drove out without ever passing the window. That should have been the end of it. But something felt wrong. I walked to Unit 38 once his taillights vanished. The lock was hanging from the latch, snapped open. I lifted the door. Inside, the air was cold, not cool cold. And there was nothing there. No tarp, no boxes. Just the faintest puddle near the back wall. Not oil, not water. Something thicker, and a single strip of red cloth. I closed it up, made a note in the logbook, and called Officer Dillard around 2. Told him someone might have dumped something. He came by half an hour later. We opened it together. It was empty, no puddle, no cloth. Even the smell was gone. He gave me a look, said maybe I'd been dozing, said it was probably a heat mirage or oil stain. But I knew what I saw, and I knew what I heard. The next night, the unit stayed quiet, same with the next 3. Then on Sunday, I came in and found the gate slightly open. I checked the logs. No one had been buzzed in. I made a full sweep. Row A clear. Row B nothing. Row C every unit locked, except number 38. It was open 2 inches, just enough to see the concrete floor, and there resting just inside the threshold was that same strip of red cloth. Dry, folded, clean. I didn't open the door all the way. I locked it, logged it, and called Mike. He said no one had ever rented Unit 38, said it had been empty for over a year, said Dennis wasn't in our system. I don't work there anymore. Quit a few weeks later. Didn't give a reason. Didn't want one. But I still think about that man. The way he moved, the sound of the tarp, and how cold it felt inside a metal box on a July night in Wyoming. I've driven past exit 191 more times than I can count, but I never take the off-ramp, and I never ever look toward row C. I've been driving semis since I was 23, and in all those years I only ever pulled over for one thing that wasn't mechanical, medical, or mandated by law. It was February, middle of a storm, blowing hard over I-80 somewhere between Ogallala and North Platte. I had chains on the rear and a half-decent Thermo King heater in the cab, so I figured I'd push through to Lincoln before stopping for the night. The CB chatter was quiet. Most guys had turned in early, parked up behind Love's, or huddled in rest stops waiting out the wind. I keep mine on out of habit more than anything. Channel 19, familiar background noise. I just passed a mile marker 207, I think, when I heard it. Faint at first, real faint. A child's voice. Mama said keep still. Mama said keep real still. I blinked and looked at the speaker like it was a trick, but it came through again. Not static, not bleed over. He's right outside the door. I slowed to 55, then 50. Looked for other rigs, maybe someone nearby playing around. But I was alone out there. My mirrors showed nothing but white. Then another voice came on. Adult. A woman this time. Soft. Shh now, baby. You hush. The CB popped once, then went silent. I figured maybe someone was messing around, maybe hauling a family load with a baby monitor too close to the mic. I'd seen weirder. But then around mile 212, it came back. Mama the man's at the window. I pulled into a turnout and parked. Snow up to the grill, no taillights in sight. I turned off the engine just to hear better. Nothing for a minute, then a lullaby. Soft, slow, off-key, sung by someone old or tired or sick. Go to sleep, little star. Go to sleep where you are. I didn't realize my hand was shaking until I picked up the CB mic and keyed it. Breaker 19, anyone else hear that northbound, near 213? No reply. Any rigs see a family in distress, possibly a kid. Dead air. I turned on my hazards and stepped out into the snow with a flashlight. Walked the shoulder boots crunching in that thick kind of silence only storms bring. No cars, no rigs, no footprints but mine. I got back in and started the engine. Tried to call D, but no bars. I was about to put it all down to fatigue when the voice returned. He opened the door, Mama. He's got cold hands. The hair on my arms stood up. I shut off the CB entirely. 10 miles later, I came up on an old van buried half in a snowbank off the right shoulder. No flares, no movement. Just one taillight still glowing faint red. I braked hard and pulled over, grabbed my high-vis, and walked up slow. The driver's side window was cracked, frost on the inside, no engine noise. Inside, it was empty. 2 seats up front, kids' booster in the back, a blanket folded on the bench, some toys, no people. But the dome light was on, and tucked in the seat back pocket behind the driver was a baby monitor. Still on, still glowing green. I brought it back to my cab, tried the volume, nothing. Then, while I sat with the monitor on the dash, the CB came alive one last time. I can see you now. Different voice, male, no accent, just flat, dry. Thanks for stopping. I left it all there, CB monitor everything. Drove straight to Lincoln with the windows down and the radio loud. I don't keep a CB in my truck anymore. Haven't since that night. I don't drive through Nebraska much either. I used to travel more than I liked. Most nights blurred together, just highway exits, chain restaurants, and rooms with the same beige walls. But in the spring of 2010, one motel stay felt different enough that I still remember every sound. The day had been long. I was driving from Missoula toward Billings, and the weather shifted between drizzle and patches of heavy fog. By the time I pulled into a roadside motel, the world around me was washed in dim yellow light from street lamps, the kind that never seem bright enough. The office was nearly empty. A woman at the desk slid the key across without asking for more than my name, as if she'd already been expecting me. I thought little of it, only noticing that the lobby clock ticked louder than it should have. My room was upstairs, facing the parking lot. The carpet smelled faintly of damp cloth, and the bedspread had that stiff weight only motels seem to manage. I unpacked, wrote up a few notes, and turned on the television for background noise. That's when I heard its soft knocks through the wall. 3 in a row, evenly spaced like someone testing the sound. I muted the TV. The silence pressed in, then the knocks came again. I leaned closer, thinking it must be a guest in the next room, maybe hanging something or knocking on their headboard. But after another stretch of quiet, the sound changed. This time it was sharper, like fingernails dragged slowly down the wall. I tried to ignore it. Motels are filled with odd noises, pipes, heaters, guests who can't sleep. I went to brush my teeth, but when I returned, I saw something new. A sheet of paper had been slid under my door. No one was in the hall when I opened it. The paper had only 5 words written in uneven ink: "Don't stay in that room." I froze, listening for footsteps, but the corridor was empty. I thought about calling the front desk, but it was late and I didn't want to sound foolish. Instead, I checked the lock twice, pushed the chair against the door, and sat awake longer than I meant to. Around 2 in the morning, the sound came back. Not knocks this time, but something heavier. A dragging noise like furniture being shifted slowly across a wooden floor. Only these rooms had carpet. I turned off the light and listened, barely breathing. The sound stopped, and after a long stretch of silence, I heard a voice through the wall. Not a clear voice, but a low murmur like someone whispering into a phone. The tone was calm, steady, almost practiced. Then, after a pause, a single word cut through louder than the rest. "Leave." I sat upright, heart hammering. Every instinct told me not to open the door. Instead, I leaned close to the wall. I could hear faint scratching again, a restless, repetitive sound that didn't match the rhythm of anything human. By 3, the noises stopped altogether. Exhaustion dragged me into uneasy sleep. When I woke in the morning, the world outside was washed in pale gray light. I stepped into the corridor, checking the room next door. The door was open, the bed stripped bare. No luggage, no signs anyone had been there at all. Downstairs, I asked the desk clerk if someone had checked out early. She gave me a strange look and shook her head. "That room's been empty," she said. "No one's in there this week." I didn't argue. I packed quickly, dropped the key, and drove out without looking back. For years, I carried that slip of paper in my glove box, folded until the ink blurred. I don't know who slid it under my door or why, but I've never stayed in a second-floor room since. That was the last story I have to share tonight. Thinking back, I realize these moments never came from the places we plan for the cities marked on maps, the destinations we talk about. They came from the pauses, the spaces in between. Gas stations, motels, rest stops. Long stretches of empty road. Those are the places meant only for passing through, and maybe that's why they linger. They catch us unprepared. They remind us how thin the walls really are between comfort and unease. The truth is, I can't prove what I heard or saw. I can only tell you what stayed with me, the steady knock of boots on a restroom floor, the hum of static at 2 in the morning, a folded note that said more than it should have. And maybe that's what makes these memories unsettling. They were small. They shouldn't have mattered. Yet here I am still carrying them. And maybe you will too, when the house grows quiet tonight. Thank you for staying with me until the very end. If you'd like to hear more stories like this, I'd be grateful if you followed the channel, shared it with a friend, and subscribed so you won't miss future nights. And tell me, have you ever stayed somewhere ordinary, a place you were meant to forget that ended up staying with you forever?